let me give you a gist of it by giving you some comparisons here. Of course, all of us remember Louisiana. At least most of us do. And there were a lot of truck drivers out there that would joke quite a bit because they just couldn't believe how things were being done. Louisiana was just horrible planning, horrible responding. There was nobody thinking on their feet in the right places that needed to be thinking on their feet and getting things done. You could have hired people from day labor companies anywhere in the country. Anywhere, any state, you name it, well, with the exception of, let's say, maybe Alaska or Hawaii. They literally, you could have hired them immediately and says, well, just grab a bag and just start walking right now to Louisiana. And I'm not kidding you. You literally could have hired people to walk from New York or California, and they would have got to Louisiana with relief faster than the federal plan that was. Let me give you another example here of what I consider inadequate planning in government. I'm going to use a nuclear war scenario. Now, many of you may have seen various programs on nuclear war. And they show you, oh my goodness, Los Angeles gets hit by 7 nukes and there's 10 million dead people and blah, 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 blah. And then they go through the horrors and everybody's, just going medieval and they're shooting and they're killing each other for food and all this stuff. Hold on. Now, first thing people need to understand is most of these scenarios have good heart in them, but not good understanding, not good research, and not good planning. And here's why. For instance, Los Angeles. Los Angeles actually brings in about 4 times the amount of food that people actually eat there. A lot of it just goes to rot or gets rejected and thrown away or converted into some other product that's non-food. And if you basically have, 3 million people get killed in a nuclear scenario, that means that the amount of food that would be coming in would be all over the roads across the country. Literally, the highways would be lined up with trucks that had the electronics fried in them that would be sitting there with food. And this isn't something, you never see this in any of the scenarios that anyone's ever chosen. I mean, showed people or chosen to show you or whatever. And I'm really insulted by this because these are the real facts. The highways would be lined with vehicles packed full of any kind of item you can imagine from A to Z. The biggest problem would be for people to figure out how to restore refrigeration, how to basically grab things and make sure that they have fuel and keep reefer units going, or bury them and ice them up, create makeshift refrigeration and use that food, because literally there would be enough food after a nuclear attack for close to 10 years for the nearby population. So all of these scenarios that you see about people are going to start killing each other and it's like a bunch of rats in a maze fighting each other, that's wrong. It's just plain wrong. And anyone who wants to go and research it, I challenge them to just try to prove me wrong about how much food would be all over the place. There's no reason to panic. What we would need to do is think on our feet very well how to preserve that which would simply be around. Now, I'll focus in on some of these later on because a lot of people are like, well, I don't think a nuclear war is going to happen. What I really think is going to happen is a quake problem, because this is California, and quake's the big thing. Meteor and or solar events are basically similar. There are historians that claim there's a conjunction to solar events and earthquakes. So this is just a theory, although I decided to say, well, let's be on the safe side, we're going to include this into the philosophy understanding in the overall decision-making cogs as we're doing our disaster situation. So basically, if you have a solar event, extreme sun, this can fry the electronics out of your vehicles. And currently the plan that is out there for emergency vehicles leaves us all hanging, because most of these emergency vehicles are not equipped to deal with it, which means, wow, it does us no good when the police cars and the fire engines and all this stuff doesn't run. So having alternate equipment for quick re-outfitting so that we can go back to things, let's just say like standard point vehicles, this would basically be crucial, because we're really reliant upon all this new stuff. And in certain solar events, all bets are off. And the odds of a solar event hitting, it's when and how many times. We've already been hit by solar events, and we already know from some of the archaeological evidence that they can happen frequently. Now, another factor here is when you have meteors. You have a big, huge asteroid come in, and it just breaks all apart. The next thing you know, we have tens of thousands, maybe millions of meteors, coming in and striking us. And a lot of them, let's say that they come in and they're, a little bigger than your car tire, and they're hitting the ground at high speed. This would not be a good thing. This would look like a war zone. And guess what? There's another factor. Meteors sometimes have uranium in them, which means these things explode, and you get an EMP factor. So once again, here comes EMP again. Solar event, EMP, damaged electronics, meteors exploding, EMP. And we know this. We know that meteors hit. We've had in the last 10 years several instances where things came in and we knew nothing about it. So you put all of this together. So and the way I'm doing the stuff for my disaster planning is basically we're going to do some really interesting things. We're going to put liquid nitrogen in police vehicles, fire vehicles, National Guard vehicles. But basically the reason you need nitrogen is really cheap. If you look around, I used to be able to get nitrogen wholesale for like $8 a gallon. Nitrogen's a wonderful thing. What nitrogen gives you the ability to do is pour it down into reefer units, and you have instant refrigeration. It is the most effective and quick way to set up emergency refrigeration. You can literally have very little equipment, and you can have people come up and they need to deal with refrigeration, and the guy says, what do you got? Everybody get in line. They get in line, and the guy grabs a hold of it and he dunks it into liquid nitrogen and says, okay, this is frozen pretty solid. Here you go. And it helps you out. It works, helps you out. Works like ice. It'll help keep your ice chest going if there's no ice available. So liquid nitrogen is a key part in my disaster plan for recovery, because we have to be able to deal with emergency refrigeration. We're going to have helicopters that could be ready to do certain things. For instance, we can have a helicopter pick up an extruder, and it can just run, 5 miles of pipe per hour. 10 hours, 50 miles.